Welcome back to Monitors Unboxed. It's time to give our recommendations on which HDR gaming monitor you should buy. Our previous update to this video was in the middle of 2022, and since then there have been a lot more HDR monitor releases, with more to come throughout 2023. So if you're interested in jumping into the HDR ecosystem, there are more options now than ever. As with our previous best of videos, we tend to talk about and recommend monitors we've personally tested and know to be good, or monitors that are very similar to products we have tested. It's always worth going back and checking out the dedicated monitor reviews we produce for more in-depth thoughts on each product. But just so you know, these recommendations are not sponsored in any way by any company. They're based on our testing and reviews. Any pricing that we talk about was correct at the time of filming, but of course you should check in your region given the focus here is on monitors in US dollars. We have links in the description below to check current pricing if you happen to see this video weeks or months after it went live. Anyway, let's kick things off first with a warning about the multitude of HDR monitors you should avoid, but something you shouldn't avoid is today's video sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Scribe, the free browser extension for Chrome that allows you to easily auto-generate step-by-step guides with just a click of a button. Let's say, for example, that I wanted to create a guide showing our Patreon members how to access our monitor OSD settings. All I need to do is install the extension, click on the Scribe icon in Chrome, and start recording. Then I navigate through our posts to find the link and how to search for your monitor in our spreadsheet. After saving the recording, Scribe automatically generates a step-by-step guide complete with screenshots and the actions I took. A few bits of editing to add in more information for our users, and it's complete, ready to share. It's that easy with the Scribe extension, and while the free version will be just fine for most of you, Scribe Pro even extends this functionality to support desktop app recording and screenshot customization. If you're interested in trying out Scribe for free, click our link in the description below. It's really that easy. In our last update video, I spent some time talking about why you should avoid most monitors that claim to be HDR capable. This is still true in 2023, but there are more true HDR products that deliver a good experience now. So if you stick to the best and most highly recommended options, you probably won't go wrong, but it's still important to note that there are a lot of products that say HDR on the box or spec sheet that ultimately deliver a poor HDR experience. To keep things short and simple, there are a handful of main specifications you should be on the lookout for to determine whether you are buying a good, true HDR monitor instead of a crappy, fake HDR monitor. These are as follows. OLED. Monitors that use OLED technology, including QD-OLED, have per pixel local dimming and therefore deliver true HDR as they are able to show bright and dark content on screen at the same time. Full array local dimming. If you are buying an LCD for HDR gaming, it's crucial the product comes with a full array local dimming backlight. This splits the backlight into multiple zones, allowing for fine tuning of which sections should be bright and which should be dim, which is crucial to enhance the contrast up to the level required for HDR. Look out for terms such as full array local dimming and FALD, as well as zone count for the number of dimming zones. Ideally, this should be in the hundreds, if not thousands of zones. Peak brightness. You should always check to make sure the spec sheet lists a relatively high peak brightness figure in excess of 600 nits. This feature alone isn't enough to deliver a good HDR experience. It needs to be combined with either OLED or full array locally dimmed LCD tech, but it's important to ensure HDR content is nice and bright. If a monitor doesn't come with these features and specifications, it's unlikely to be true HDR and will look bad for HDR content. True HDR displays deliver a significant improvement over SDR displays and include the hardware to show HDR largely as intended. Without these features, a monitor advertised as HDR may simply be showing you HDR content with the brightness cranked up, rather than with the contrast enhancements that give HDR its high dynamic range name. Unfortunately, many companies lie about HDR capabilities for their monitors and rely on terrible certification schemes like Display HDR, which should be ignored. Luckily, there are some true HDR products that I believe are worth buying, so let's get into it. I'm going to start with the best ultrawide HDR monitor category because I believe this is also the best overall HDR monitor category on the market right now. This is due to two excellent options from Alienware, the AW3423DW and AW3423DWF, which are very similar and both are worth considering. The AW3423 monitors are 34-inch 3440 by 1440 ultrawides with a 175Hz refresh rate in the case of the DW or 165Hz in the case of the DWF. The primary reason why I think these are such a good buy is that they are OLED monitors designed specifically for desktop HDR gaming on PC, with excellent performance and hardware capabilities. With QD-OLED technology, these Alienware displays deliver proper, true HDR performance thanks to OLED's self-lit pixel structure and resulting deep zero-level blacks. This panel can hit up to 1000 nits of brightness for small elements and just looks great displaying HDR content. Combined with its extremely fast response times thanks to the inherent nature of OLED technology and fast refresh rate, it delivers an elite combination of gaming and HDR performance. Of course, aside from HDR gaming, they're also very capable SDR gaming monitors as well, and despite featuring OLED tech, it doesn't have some of the drawbacks we've seen from other OLED displays. In particular, full screen brightness of 240 nits is usable in most rooms, though not amazing, and there's no annoying features like automatic brightness limiters enabled when using the SDR mode. Dell also mitigates the anxiety over OLED's tendency to burn in with a 3-year burn-in warranty, better than many of its competitors right now in the OLED space. That's not to say these Alienwares are perfect. There are some drawbacks to be aware of. They're not an ideal monitor for desktop app usage and productivity work due to their non-standard subpixel layout that causes fringing around hard edges and text, and the still present risk of permanent burn-in. As such, I'd only recommend these displays if you are primarily going to use it for content consumption, like gaming or watching videos. There's also the display coating, which is poor and has issues with ambient light reflection in brightly lit rooms. As for whether to buy the AW3423DW or the DWF model, again, both are very similar and they largely deliver the same performance. The DW is the more expensive monitor at $1,300 US with a slightly higher refresh rate and more accurate HDR performance with the current firmware. The DWF is cheaper at $1,100 US, and while it doesn't quite have the same refresh rate or HDR accuracy, it has a much less annoying fan, supports firmware updates, and has lower input latency. Based on these factors, I'd generally recommend the cheaper DWF, but it's hard to go wrong here as both are great for HDR gaming. What I've also found over the last few months is that even as we see more HDR monitors come to market and more OLED options appear, these Alienwares continue to hold up extremely well in performance. It is possible that one of the newer ultrawides using QD OLED tech will surpass them, but for now this is a really solid option that is right up there as the best HDR monitor you can get right now. If you're after a 1440p HDR gaming monitor, then there is one option I can recommend, and it's a standout great choice, the LG 27GR95QE. This is a 27-inch 2560 by 1440 OLED display with a maximum refresh rate of 240Hz, making it both the only standard-sized OLED gaming monitor on the market right now and among the highest refresh rate OLEDs you can get. The 27GR95QE is a great choice from a number of perspectives. Like the AW3423DW, the use of OLED technology here means we get per pixel local dimming and deep zero-level blacks, giving us that mind-boggling contrast ratio we've come to expect from true HDR and OLED displays. While it's not the brightest monitor going around, this LG option is still capable of stunning gameplay experiences. Due to its high 240Hz refresh rate, the 27GR95QE also has among the best motion clarity of any monitor that I've tested, almost as good as an LCD running at a much higher 360Hz refresh rate. This is an extremely fast display, and it's not just that for response times and motion clarity, but input lag too, which is excellent for both SDR and HDR gaming. This makes the LG a highly versatile gaming monitor. It's great for visually immersive single-player titles and fast-paced competitive games, which is rare among today's monitor offerings. There's several other strengths here too, such as support for hardware calibration, a wide P3 color gamut, outstanding viewing angles, and proper HDMI 2.1. However, like other OLEDs, this display isn't very suited to productivity work due to its flawed RWBG subpixel layout that affects text clarity, risk of permanent burn-in, and low brightness. However, I found the matte screen coating to be quite good in general. The 27GR95QE is a great choice if you're after something normal in size, OLED that's a good resolution, flat, and with a very high refresh rate. It's also priced quite fairly at just $1,000 US, which is among the cheaper HDR monitors in this video, though still relatively expensive given it is a high-end product like everything true HDR. It's quite a tight battle between this and the AW3423DW series for the overall best HDR monitor, and I've got a full video on the channel going in depth on the differences between these two displays. But in short, the higher brightness of the Alienware, its superior text rendering, better uniformity and longer warranty gives it a slight edge. But really, they are both very good for HDR gaming, and I don't think you'll be disappointed with either. It's also worth noting that like the Alienware QD OLED, there are several monitors coming out in the next few months that also use this same 1440p WOLED panel, so it may be worth waiting to assess your options. But if you want something right now, this LG monitor is certainly very decent. So far, what we've talked about and recommended in this video are two OLED monitors with 1440p class resolutions. But what if you want something that's 4K, or something that's a bit larger, or something without the risk of burn-in that you get with OLED, or with excellent text clarity? This is where our best normal size 4K HDR option comes in. In my opinion, the monitor to choose in this category is the Samsung Odyssey Neo G7. It's a 32-inch 4K 165Hz gaming display using VA LCD technology and with a 1196 zone full array local dimming backlight. Thanks to this backlight and the use of high contrast VA tech, the Neo G7 offers a true HDR experience that I think gets the closest to OLED of any LCD monitor I've tested so far. It doesn't quite match OLED for its richness, shadow detail and viewing angles, but there's no doubting the HDR experience here is impressive. The Neo G7 is one of the fastest LCD monitors I've tested in terms of response times, and while motion clarity isn't as good as OLED displays, it still offers a strong gaming experience, especially at 4K. The HDR experience is very good as well. The combination of a high zone count backlight and great native contrast ratio leads to minimal blooming in HDR content while retaining the punch you should get from these displays. Peak brightness can reach around 1200 nits, and overall this display is somewhat brighter than you'll get from an OLED, though it's not especially bright. Being a more traditional gaming display, the Neo G7 has a few other advantages up its sleeve. The use of VA LCD tech means there's no risk of burn-in, and it has a normal subpixel structure which plays nicely with desktop apps and text. And of course, the size is really nice for desktop use. 32 inches with this sort of resolution is fantastic. There are some drawbacks though, which end up being the reason why I prefer the OLED options I was discussing earlier. The 1000R curvature is very aggressive and adds nothing to the experience, so while the display is better suited to desktop use, I don't think it's all that versatile as a productivity or creator monitor. Motion performance is also worse than OLED options, and input latency with dimming enabled is unimpressive. Poor viewing angles also require you to view the display dead on to get the best HDR experience. What keeps the Neo G7 as a great option though is its price tag at times. Its normal MSRP of $1,300 is fine, though not especially good value compared to the OLEDs from earlier, but sales frequently take the price down to $1,100 US, with a historic low of an insane $800. If you can wait for a sale to bring it down below MSRP, that's definitely what I'd recommend. I'd also get this monitor over the Neo G8, its higher refresh rate brother, as the Neo G8 ships with deal-breaking issues. Our final category in this video is for the best large format 4K HDR monitor, and there's two reasons why this is included. One, for some people 32 inches like we get from the Neo G7 is too small and they want something larger and super immersive. And two, in my opinion, the overall best 4K HDR monitor for gaming, when you don't factor in screen size, is in fact a larger format display, that being the LG C2 OLED in its 42-inch size option. The reason why I say this is the overall best 4K HDR gaming monitor right now is because of its OLED technology, and the simple fact we don't yet have an OLED option at this resolution with a size below 42 inches. OLED offers three main advantages over our top LCD pick in the Odyssey Neo G7 for 4K HDR gaming: per pixel local dimming, faster response times, and better viewing angles. With each pixel being able to individually illuminate itself, the C2 OLED offers unparalleled dimming and the ability to show bright and dark objects close together with no blooming or haloing issues. The C2 OLED gets extremely dark for shadow detail, shows true zero-level blacks, and is capable of bright highlights over 650 nits in real-world content. It also has a glossy screen with great reflection handling, which makes colours pop and HDR shine. Response times are lightning fast on the C2, and while the Neo G7 is a fast monitor, the C2 is an order of magnitude faster. This helps to compensate for its rather low 120Hz refresh rate, compared to 165Hz for the Neo G7. Despite this difference in motion clarity, the C2 can actually be better at times simply due to how fast it can transition. And 120Hz is still plenty of speed for visual extravaganzas and other single-player titles, which are the best examples of HDR today. The C2 also has a few other advantages which put it in top spot and make it a great buy. It has a flat panel with excellent viewing angles. It's a massive display that is very immersive, without being so large that it's impractical for desktop usage, though it is big enough that it won't be suitable for all setups. It offers full Smart TV functionality, 4 HDMI 2.1 ports and Dolby Vision support, making it a great option for console gaming and other forms of content consumption like video playback. Plus, it's typically a great value option, having recently dropped below $1,000 US, which makes it great value, especially compared to other products that use the same panel, like the Asus PG42 UQ, which is very expensive at $1,400 US. Of course, being an OLED, there are some downsides here. The monitor is not suitable for desktop usage or productivity work owing to its low SDR brightness, non-standard sub-pixel layout, automatic brightness limiter, and risk of permanent burn-in, though none of these are significant concerns if your primary use case is gaming or watching videos. It also only offers HDMI, no DisplayPort connector is included, so you'll need an HDMI 2.1 compatible GPU for the best experience. I'd overlook all of these issues at its current great price tag and just enjoy what it has to offer for 4K HDR gaming. It's also likely that the LG C2 will be replaced by the LG C3 at some point this year. We're not expecting too many changes between the C2 and C3, so it's likely that the C3 will also be a good buy depending on pricing. That's something to keep in mind if you're watching this video several months after it went live. So that's it for this HDR gaming monitor recommendation video. Still very much an emerging category among monitors, but it's great to see that we now have a solid range of options that are worth recommending, which also cover a number of different formats and use cases. I'm expecting this year to be a bumper year for HDR displays, so I'm sure we'll be back later in 2023 to update this video once we've tested a few more options. As always, if you do want to learn more about the monitors I've been talking about in this video, I have individual reviews available either on this channel or over on Hardware Unboxed. I'd also recommend checking the links in the description for updated pricing information, as this does change over time, so check down there if you are watching this video weeks or months after it went live. Anyway, that's it for this monitor recommendation video. Thanks to everyone who does support the channel, either via subscribing, liking the video, or supporting us via Patreon or Floatplane. To make these sorts of videos, it does take a lot of time to test and produce the reviews on each of the individual monitors, so thanks to everyone that does support our independent testing. And if you do sign up to Floatplane and Patreon below, you will get access to some cool bonuses like ICC profiles, we've got our Discord chat with a dedicated monitor section, and plenty of other good stuff. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.